Meine Damen und Herren, willkommen zu dieser ganz speziellen Blackbox. Welcome to this special Blackbox des Filmmakers Live for Dolori Gloria, German title LEID und HERRLICHKEIT. We are very, very emotional, and I'm not alone. I brought from the team, I'm the artistic director, Christoph Gröner, and I brought our lover of Latin cinema within the program, Florian Borchmeyer, to help me here to introduce a star who literally does not need introduction. Please make some noise for Mr. Antonio Banderas. This microphone, this blue one, would be the perfect one.
Well, it is.
I love the space. No, I'm serious.
It's intimate and theater-like.
It's intimate, but it looks like a theater, a live theater, and I like that because I am, coming from theater actually.
So yeah, that is an interesting coincidence because in some sense I thought, what can we do to start to talk with an actor whose whole career we have followed and nearly seen all the films, so there's no necessity to introduce him because it would be repeating somebody everybody knows. But there is exactly a part I think we don't know so much about, that is the moment before you started entering
the moment
cinemas,
before the Big Bang.
The theater. And now I wanted to ask you for your life before cinema at theater, and you're giving the keyword yourself. How did it come that you discovered cinema after first working in theater?
Well, cinema came way later. Theater for me was the first impulse that I felt to be an actor. Came from the theater. My mother and my father were very much theater aficionados, and since the time that I was very young, they used to take us, the big companies that were coming from Madrid to Malaga during the season, and we used to go there. And I just remember loving the ritual of theater. Yes, the fact that a number of people goes on a stage and tell a story to another number of people who listen and reflect or laugh or get emotional or many things. I thought that it was an incredible act of civilization in a way to have that possibility. And I remember, and the British actually, or English in general, I love the word that they use for actors or for, to play. To play, which in Spain will translate for jugar, like kids, I love that, and I used to love, I remember seeing old actors playing and thinking, oh my God, look at that, he's old, he continues playing the game of making believe, whatever he's doing. It's funny because now, many years after I am involved in theater, if you want, we can talk about that later, but because it makes more sense than ever. It seems that we live in a time in which things that are not recorded or they are not put in a cell phone, they don't exist. And it's true.
Ladies and gentlemen, take notice.
It's true, but they do exist. We do exist. We are creating kind of a world of zombies. We work with our cell phones, doing selfies. There is something more horrible than that, than selfie. Is the big ceremony. Is the big ceremony of the arrogance of narcissism. I am all the time here, just making pictures of myself at any time in any circumstance. And theater is something ephemeral. You do it, and the next day is going to be completely different. and the next day is going to be completely different. And the people who are like me, we are actors, we go on the stage, we know that because the company changes. There is somebody sick in the company, so the company moves in a different way. Depending on the audience, there are audiences that they laugh a lot and it's very easy actually to play with them, and there are audiences that are more reticent, so you don't know why. So it's every day is a different animal, and I love that. In the middle of this is cinema.
Well, in some sense, in your work in cinema, I can feel some remains of these theater times in your beginning, because when we work in theater, it is always about reacting to a spontaneous situation, because, as you say, something extremely different can happen on stage, and you always have to react to it. You cannot do the same thing every evening once again. So I feel that in your acting way also in the films, that you precisely react to your partner, which is something I really admire in your way of acting. But my question is, why did you do the step from the stage to the screen? What motivated you?
It was kind of an accident of 130 movies. But I think everything started one afternoon in Madrid. I was in the National Theatre at the time. I was doing a Calderón de la Barca play, our Shakespeare. And I was outside of the theatre, probably an hour before the performance, and suddenly a guy with a red briefcase came on. We were just having a coffee there, and I started talking. He was a very funny guy, very ingenious, very fast. He talked and at the moment that he was just saying goodbye and he was leaving, he looked at me. At the time I had long hair and a little beard, and he looked at me and says, "You got a very romantic face and you should do movies." And I said, "Well, thank you, whoever you are." So that person left, and I asked my friends, "Who is this guy?" And he says, "Oh, his name is Pedro Almodóvar. He just make one movie, but he will never do another one." Spain is just filled with prophets, and not very successful ones. But that's how it started, because no further than a week and a half after that encounter, he came to the theater, and he came with an Argentinian actress called Cecilia Roth, that actually is in Pain and Glory too. And they saw the performance, and after that he came to my dressing room, and it's the first time that I receive an offer to make a movie. He says, "I'm doing a movie called Labyrinth of Passions, and we would love to have you there. There is a little character that I would like for you to play." And I said, "I've never done a movie." I said, "Well, there is a first time for everything." And so that's how I actually did the transition. It was just, I accepted the offer from Pedro Almodóvar. Yeah. I was 42 years ago. Ouch.
And this was also a time of movida in Madrid. It was actually called the movida, this very special time of freedom within Spain, when so much within culture was exploding. How did this specific moment in Madrid in these years form you?
Very much. It was a time, Franco died in 1975, I am talking about 1980. It was a time of a certain revolution, fortunately peaceful revolution from a social point of view, but artistic revolution that was very strong. And there were a number of groups of music, designers, photographers, filmmakers, a bunch of artistic people that actually were trying to destroy everything that had to do with the past to create something new that smelled different. And Pedro Almodóvar was at the vertex, at the vertex of this pyramid. And so I was very lucky that I got in Madrid at this particular time in the history of my country, because in a way I was growing from being a teenager, a kid, to be a man at the same time that my country was going from a dictatorship to a democracy. So I could witness, these kind of parallel lines, in the first row, because I was in Madrid, which is the place where everything was happening at the time. It was important, not only for an artistic point of view, and Almodóvar made sure of that too, but also in terms of morality, a way to understand life. I remember in 1985, in the middle of La Movida, the movement, when we were going to shoot Law of Desire. And I read the script, and the script was, very strong from a sexual point of view, relationship between men, very explicit on the screen. And so, I was afraid, what is going to be the response of the audience to this? What is going to be the response of my mother to this? Yeah. And but I remember that Pedro was smart enough to open a reflection among all of us that was very clever. I remember talking with him about the fact that in page 21 of the script, I had to kill somebody. I was a character made by an actor called Mickey Molina, and I bite him and I throw him out of a cliff and he dies. Yeah. And nobody was putting attention to that. To kill somebody on the screen is fine. Is totally accepted by audiences all around the world, has been accepted for years, even in movies for kids. You kill the bad guys or whatever and you just fall and, nothing happens. But if you kiss a person of your same sex, whoa, it seems like the world is going to stop. Even many years after, still now, there is a certain, you can feel it. I remember recently in the Cannes Film Festival, I don't know, you saw the movie, Pain and Glory. There is a moment in which there is a kiss between two characters. I am one of them. And it's a very strong, explicit kiss on the screen. And many years after, we are now in the 2000s and the 21st century. And so, but that night at the Palais, when the kiss came, it was, believe me, it was the whole entire theater did. It was this thing, Pedro Almodóvar, in a way, helped to destroy many walls, many barriers in terms of morality that existed in Spain at that time. People start considered as normal things that were not normal until that time. So the work that he did and the labor that he did was not only just in an artistic way, but in a social way, very strong, very strong.
I would like to know a little bit more on this impression of starting a film career as a queer icon, which was the case with The Law of Desire. The interesting thing is then in your famous film, you afterwards you turn out to be the heterosexual Latin lover icon, which might be extremely embarrassing too. So how does it feel for you to start as a queer icon and be then the heterosexual Latino icon? How does this feel for you as a man?
It's called anachrony, but it's true. It's funny because when I went to America, I received these characters, heroic characters. They were in a way very classic and very conventional movies like Zorro, Desperado, and movies like that. And it's funny because I remember doing press conferences and everybody talking to me about the Latin lover, the Latin lover, the Latin lover, the Latin lover. And I was just answering those questions. There is no probably an actor in the history of motion pictures who play more gay characters than me. And, but yes. But I was treated as a Latin lover, in a way. It says very much about my career. I've been in many different environments. I play many different characters in many different genres. And I am very happy that happened that way because I consider myself an actor. And I wanted to, there was a moment that I saw an opportunity, I saw a crack there, and I said, I have to use this. I want to just know what is going to happen in another world that was at that time for the Spanish actors impossible, which was Hollywood. You know, that was untouchable, among other things, because I couldn't speak one word of English when I went there. At the age of 31, I got to America. They picked me to do this movie called The Mambo Kings, in which I couldn't understand the director. I have an interpreter that talked to the director and talked to me. Maybe the movie of my participation was directed by the interpreter, and but I couldn't. No, I learned the lines phonetically, as you learn a song, and then
that is your role.
I went to the opening of the movie and I couldn't understand it.
You did that very well.
So
it was authentic.
But no, it was like that. But it was for me almost like an adventure that I started at that time, and it allowed me to do movies that were impossible to do in Spain. You know, those type of that genre of adventure action movies in Spain, we couldn't allow ourselves. Our economy, you know, the financing of the movies in Spain was in a completely different way. Among other things, also because there are big differences between America and Europe in terms of movies. America, exception of a group of fantastic directors, but Hollywood is a factory. We have to understand that. And they do very well product, very well done, you know. I'm not going to say the name of a brand of soda that we all know, right? But they do that, and they do it very well. Now, Europe is different. Europe is more artistic. Europe does a good wine. It's a completely different way to understand, you know, how you approach audiences. They go for the mainstreams. That's what they love to do, and they do it again, I repeat, very well. And in Europe, it's a completely different deal. And I have been playing, in a way, between both worlds, yeah.
But didn't you also... sorry.
Somebody like it there.
Didn't you also conceive that a little bit as a risk to abandon like an art house film scene in which you were like a kind of icon? How did, for example, Almodóvar perceive the fact that you left for Hollywood?
It's funny, because Almodóvar, when they called me to do the Mambo Kings, the movie was called The Mambo Kings Play Songs of Love. And in a picture here in Germany that I had with him and Victoria Abril in the Berlin Film Festival, on top of the wall, when it was the 1989, I think, the wall was coming down, and we made a picture there. But in that picture, he signed, the Mambo Kings play very sad songs. Pedro, I still have that picture because I was going to America, you know. Risky, yes. Everything in my profession is risky. If you don't understand that from the moment that you step on the stage and in front of a camera, you are wrong. You know, you have to assume risk, and you have to take risk continuously if you want to be an actor. And of course, you know, there were moments in which I thought, oh, maybe I just made some mistakes. But at the end, when I look back now, I have to admit, this is my life. I love all the movies that I have done, the good ones, the bad ones. It's like, if you have a kid and your kid is not normal, he comes out with some kind of handicap, you love him even more. Well, the same thing happened with movies that I have done that probably didn't connect with the audiences, but they taught me a lot about myself. So I don't regret any of the steps that I have taken in my life. This is what I am, and so yeah, risks. Yeah, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It's called pain and glory.
Pain and Glory, Dolor y Gloria, or Light und Herrlichkeit in German, which will soon start here with us. Of course, a marvelous working together of you both again. And we wondered, of course, there is an intense biographical element regarding your director, but how do you feel about it? Did you feel that it is he's like portraying his self-portrait in you, or did you find also something of you within that role of the director that you played for Pedro Almodóvar?
Vamos a ver, in a way, the preparation, unconsciously, but the preparation of the character that I do in Pain and Glory started 9 years back. Yeah. And it was a kind of a coincidence, not a coincidence, but Pedro Almodóvar called me to do a movie called The Skin I Live In. For 22 years, we didn't work together. We were friends. If he came to Los Angeles, I used to see him. If I go to Madrid, with the same thing, you know, so we kept our relationship going, but we didn't work together. So when I went to Madrid to rehearse The Skin I Live In, I went to the first rehearsal, because Pedro loves to rehearse. You know, he's one of those movie directors who he loves to spend time with the actors creating the characters. So I went to the first rehearsal and I got there with a backpack filled with 22 years of experiences. And I put them on the table and I said, look what I am now. You know, look the things that I have learned, look at my voice has changed, I'm more secure in front of the camera, all of those things are happening. And he basically said, I don't care, I don't like any of those things. That must be very useful for you to do Zorro and to do movies in America and this and that, but where are you? And he started digging there. And at that time, I confronted him. I said, and we were, you know, in a very creative way. We never fought, you know, but in a very creative way, we were confronting each other during the whole entire movie. It was tense in many moments, you know, because he's a leader and he likes to control practically everything and every department. I've seen Pedro, for example. I remember one day we arrived to one of the sets and the color that he asked for was green pistachio on the walls. And we arrived there and he said, this is not green pistachio. And everybody was looking at each other saying, it looks like green pistachio to me. It was not green pistachio, and everybody went home and they painted again that thing. And we lose 1 day of work because he wanted to have a green pistachio in the green pistachio that he had in his mind. So that's Pedro Almodóvar. He's a very meticulous person. He goes through every single little detail. So imagine, you know, it was strong. Then I went to the Toronto Film Festival, and we presented the movie there, and I saw the movie, and I couldn't believe that he got the capacity to bring out of me a character that I didn't know I had inside. And that was a big lesson. And I thought, man, you know, he's Pedro Almodóvar. I have to trust. And that's very important for an actor, especially when you're working with a director. You have to, believe me, you have to trust. If you don't trust, you are in trouble. You are completely, you know, out of key with that person, you know. So it took 9 years for him to call me again. And he sent this script, and I read it, and it was very simple, almost minimalist, very sincere. I saw things there that I never thought Pedro Almodóvar was going to put on the screen. Very personal, especially everything that has to do with a relationship with his family, mother, with his love, with actors, with cinema, with himself in general. And I took a decision. I said, okay, I'm going to go now with the backpack. I'm going to go now as a plain soldier. I don't have medals. I have to go clean, as much open eyes and ears to listen to this man and understand why he wants to do this movie and why he wants me. And that was the deal. I called him on the phone. I said exactly what I am telling you. And that's the way I went there. And the work was completely different from that moment on. It's the best shooting I ever had in my life. In my life. We finished 1 week and a half before we were supposed to finish, which is unthinkable in a movie. Unthinkable. It's because we were connected. And it just spanned to the rest of the cast that we were in harmony. And so, you see, one is always, you have to be always open to accept mistakes and to learn from them, because they come normally with a big reward. answer your question?
Of course. Look at the reaction. Of course the question got answered. Okay. But I want to invite the audience also, if there are pressing questions. There's a microphone over there. You could step up and stand there, and once we see you, we can put you into this conversation. Serious questions, please. Serious questions, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I will ask a juicy question, if I may, before we go on. The juicy question would be, there's a wonderful interview between you and Pedro Almodóvar reflecting on the time of doing ÁTAME, a film that we also have put in the program. And within this interview, he says, like Elia Kazan, of all people, has said, ÁTAME has the best sex scene of film history. Well, how would you comment on that?
I was too young.
All right. So
I don't know if I can repeat that.
On to that serious question. Thank you.
Yeah. You worked with the Munich-based producer Bernd Eichinger on House of Spirits. May you share some membranes on this elaborate cast being one family? Because you were all over the world cast together?
No, it was actually the first time that I had the opportunity to work with you know, a chorus of stars like this. You know, it was Meryl Streep, Glenn Close, Winona Ryder, Jeremy Irons. You know, everybody was there. It was like working in a wax museum. It just as unbelievable. And it's true. But and on top of that, at front of the whole entire operation was Billy August, who is a director who I really love. And he was the director actually defeated us at the Oscars when we went nominated for Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, and he won for a movie called Pale the Conquer. And so he was our opponent, and now he called me to shoot with him. No, my memories were very beautiful, actually. We were shooting in Portugal, in a place called Vila Nova de Mil Fontes, south of Lisbon. And you know, it's one of those movies in which you learn that big people are normally humble. And I remember having great conversation with Meryl, and that actually we were remembering now, because I just finished a movie with her with Steven Soderbergh in Los Angeles, and we were just remembering those days, and we became very good friends with Glenn Close. It was great. There were some mistakes there that were very funny in that movie. People who are from South America know those mistakes. For example, we're in Chile, right? So it's Christmas time, and everybody is wearing coats, and it's very cold. But Christmas time in Chile is summer.
Made for an international global audience.
I know. Little things like that. But it was based on Isabel Allende's book. I did actually, the other two movies that have been done is of Love and Shadows, and this movie of Isabel Allende. And then Isabel Allende wrote a book of Zorro. And after I did the movie, and she confessed to me one day that during the whole entire time that she was writing that book, she got a picture of me as Zorro in her desk, you know. But you know, it was very beautiful because she touched the movie and also of Love and Shadows issues that are very important in the history, in dramatic history of South America in the last 3 or 4 decades, with the military dictatorship and the people who disappeared. More than 33,000 people disappeared in Argentina and Chile, and those movies were touching that in a very elegant, beautiful, denouncing way. Yeah.
I would like to know how it was working with Jonathan Demme on Philadelphia, and how was the research for the role?
With Jonathan, it was very special. This is a man that was absolutely committed to anything that he did. I get to know him even better after, because my ex-wife Melanie did a movie with him too, and they were friends, and every time that we used to go to New York, we used to have dinner with him, and he was a great guy. But this is a man that was absolutely committed with actually all the situation that happened with AIDS at that time. And I remember the whole entire crew, including the technicians, we were participating in demonstrations at that time. In 1993, the situation with AIDS and people actually with HIV was very dramatic. Now the situation is different, but at that time, not only because of the medical problems, but because of the rejection of society, and especially the politicians at that time. You know, it's almost like they wanted to cover everything, like nothing's happening. So the situation was very dramatic, and he was at front of every little single thing that was happening at the time. I remember just details that come to my mind, you know. But we were shooting a scene in which there is a party that we are doing for Tom Hanks' character, my boyfriend in the movie. And we were dressing as Marines in white with our hats, you know, military Marines. And everybody who was in that party, they were HIV, all the extras. And so we were shooting that scene for 3 or 4 days. In Philadelphia. And so we became friends with some of the people that were working there as extras, you know, and so I remember being friends with one of those guys, and I said to him, well, I'll see you at the opening, and he didn't make it. That's the story of what happened with these people at that time. They didn't have any hope. You know, it was not until several years after. So, you know, that movie, I thought it was absolutely necessary at that particular time, just to call the attention. And the fact that movie was done in Hollywood was very important, because it went into the mainstreams of movies. Because if you do it as an independent movie, okay, it's, you know, we value the effort, but doing it from the inside the system, the factory, that was very important, because a lot of people saw that movie and a lot of people reflect about the problem at the time. Yeah.
So,
and also, Tom won an Oscar for that, that he dedicated to his boyfriend.
what is the most important thing to probably become a great director? To be a great director, more specific, and even more specific, in one word.
In one word.
Actor.
Actor.
Actor. Yes. Thank you. Please.
Or actress. In one word, it's very complicated. You have to recognize that it's very complicated. One word? Communication.
Let's reflect. If you could please go up to the microphone, that would be lovely. Just one. Yes. Oh, it's very far away? Okay.
It's far away.
It's far away.
But you got a spotlight there, baby.
Yes, there's a light. That's the limelight.
Now we can see. You can sing whatever you want.
A simple question. If there are actors from the past that were a source of inspiration for you, or also in the contemporary scene, in the contemporary movie scene?
No, but there are many actors. You're welcome. Many actors from the past that are an inspiration to me. You know, and many of those are classic names. Like, I don't know, Marlon Brando, of course, James Dean, among those actors, Gregory Peck, George C. Scott, for example, is an actor that always impressed me. There are many, even Gene Kelly. I am telling you the truth, you know. There are movies that were done in that beautiful Hollywood, like Singing in the Rain, that for me, I can see that movie, I don't know, 10 times, 15 times. I will always enjoy it. And there are also actors of my generation that are fabulous, you know. I mean, and I had the luck and the opportunity to work with some of those, you know, like Meryl Streep, for example. Meryl Streep probably is one of the best actresses ever. You know, that woman can do practically anything that you throw at her. It's very powerful. And when you have her in front of you, you realize her power is just contagious, you know. I mean, it's unbelievable. So yeah, I think I am an actor because I admire actors. So there are so many, I can be giving you a list of them. Probably there are one or two that I don't like, and I am not going to say.
If you could please go there.
Hola, mi nombre es Fabiola González.
Me encanta.
Ava y Verde, I will make this in English for everybody. What means for you to be in Germany here and to receive this important award?
It means a lot.
Yeah, but tell me more.
How
do you feel?
I will.
She's not paid by us.
Give me the sorrow in you.
You are not happy with my answer. You want something more developed, right?
Yeah.
Well, Germany was one of those countries that really started discovering Pedro Almodóvar. You know, Spain is very bad. You know, in Spain we have a saying, I'm going to say in Spanish so you will understand, but there I'll translate it in English. Es muy difícil ser poeta en tu tierra. It's very difficult to be a poet in your own land. Yeah. And it's true, in Spain we are very bad with ourselves. We just punish ourselves very much. So when, you know, artists in general go out and they have a triumph outside of the countries, when the people in Spain start putting an eye on them. And Pedro Almodóvar, the first triumphs of Pedro Almodóvar were in the Berlin Film Festival. Yep, in the Panorama section. When nobody was giving a dime for Pedro Almodóvar in Spain, Germany bet for him. Yeah. And he always mentioned the Berlin Film Festival as one of those festivals that he got in his heart because of that reason, you know. And I remember we went there with Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, and the reception was wonderful at the time too. There is something special. I suppose that has to do with a way of perceiving artists in a very open way. And without restrictions, and Almodóvar needed that. In Spain, there was too many restrictions to accept him. He just changed too much the rules of the game. He distorted too much the way that he was telling a story, that the people said, this is a bluff. We are not going to believe it. Yeah.
Congratulations.
You mentioned Gene Kelly as an influence or somebody you truly loved, and that there's really one important thing that I wanted to mention, that within your career the passion for dance and performing and singing is also seen throughout. And so when was it already there back then when you were in your teens, when you decided you want to go for the performing arts, that would include singing and dancing, a passion for that? I know an early filmic influence has been, and I hope I'm not mistaken, seeing Hair, the musical, for example. Truly,
it is true.
Yeah,
it's very strange. I saw Hair in 1976, an American company that I don't know how the heck they got in Spain, because you know the regime was still there, and Hair was actually against the regime, but somehow they made it to Malaga. And I saw that, and it was like, oh my God, I want to be one of those guys on the other side. You know, yes, I have been always very locomotriz. You know, I base many of my characters in the movement, even in the no movement. For example, in Pain and Glory, it's exactly the opposite. I try to be as much economic as I could be.
Yes, yeah.
And that is very noticeable, because normally I am more legs and arms. I had very counted opportunities to actually do musicals in cinema, just the case of Evita, and some of the musicals that I did in Spain that is not internationally known, but I have done it in the theater. I was on Broadway playing Nine for a year, and I have done, but I base very much the characters that I compose in movement. That's why for me approaching Zorro was kind of easy, because I understood immediately, you know, some of the flair of the character was based on his body and in the way that he moves in front of the camera, or even the character that I did in Desperado. I remember talking with Robert Rodriguez very much about how we were going to create the character, and at the time, in 1994, that we did the movie, the heroes, the action heroes were very solid. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, it was like... And so we tried to create something different, almost like a dancer, like a bullfighter, something more plastic, more elastic, more choreographic. And that we did it in that way, you know, and it worked at the time. So I feel good in that kind of context. Yes, you're right.
But there's something I find extremely interesting, because if you compare that with the killing scenes by Schwarzenegger, the element of dance in killing scenes, like in Zorro and in Desperado, is also a kind of new aesthetization of violence. How did you feel in confront with that? Was it from you a new form of showing violence on screen, like also in the Tarantino films, let's say?
Yeah, it was choreographic, definitely. For me, when I was doing scenes, for example, two things. In Zorro, for example, they were choreographic and in the department of comedy. Mm-hmm. I remember having a fight with like 20-something guys, you know, in a barn. And what we tried to do is just comedy. Basically, with all the movements and the way they were, and choreographic. There was something that had to do with a ballet, more than violence in a way, you know. Also in Desperado. Desperado is true that is this kind of new way of understanding violence brought by Tarantino that actually was based in movies of the 70s. B-movies of the 70s. Movies done by Sergio Leone, for example, in Spain, in the south of Spain, those spaghetti western, they were called, you know, there were many of those. It was reenacting those type of things, you know, in a different way. But yeah, in the way that I saw it, for me, it was a ballet. Yeah.
And the last question better be a good one. It's for you. For you. No. Feel relaxed. Just do it. No.
We have to.
Go on.
We can do two
Yeah,
questions.
maybe.
No. Please. No. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm an actress coming from theater, going to movie, or I try. So what would be the things you learned in theater you could take to the movie, and what would be the things you had to learn new? What advice would you give, except for meeting Almodóvar?
You should meet with Almodóvar.
Okay, but
there are two different arts. Mm-hmm. There are two different arts. It's very complicated just to tell you exactly what is that thing that you have in theater as an actor that you can actually take with you to make a movie, because actually it's going to actually take you more out than in. You have to redo a completely different career when you are in front of the camera, because there are completely different elements, at least for me. And we have some examples in Spain. We have two actors that were an example for me. Nuria Esper, who is a very dramatic actress in the theater, excellent, wonderful, a special thing, you know. And Jose Maria Rodero, another actor, that were both of them extraordinary in theater, but they don't work in the screen. It's unbelievable, you know, that they have this magnetism when they go on the stage, and when they are in front of a camera, they are invisible. And you don't know why. You know, what is the mystery behind that? So they are completely different techniques when you go in front of a camera or when you are in a theater. You know, the camera is a very dangerous toy. You know, that reveals sides of you that you don't even know that you had.
Okay. I'm excited now.
Thank you. And just one last question, as we have to wrap up Okay, please. Okay, of course, please.
Listening your personal opinion that you like all sort of roles, romantic and other roles also. But you actually, personally, I feel, prefer romantic roles. And
that is the question.
The romantic roles, for example, can you imagine that you can work in also Bollywood? Because these also...
Oh, I know where this is headed. Okay, okay.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Singing.
I totally love it. No, it's very funny because it's very interesting that at the end of the, this encounter, we go back to the beginning. Because we started with Pedro Almodóvar telling me on a coffee shop in Madrid, you have a very romantic face, you should do movies. So you come now that you should do some romantic roles in Bollywood. And and I would love that because, no, absolutely true. I wouldn't say no. Why not?
Yes, yes.
Please give a big applause to Antonio Banderas. Woo!
That's it? Okay.